I was told a story years ago by a nurse from the VA. It always spooked me a bit, so I'm telling it. One night, they brought in a patient who was hysterical and missing an eye. She wasn't there for this, but tended him after. They admitted him to the psychiatric ward where she worked. They assumed he'd cut out his own eye based on the fact there really was no information to prove otherwise. What the man claimed happened is what is quite scary. He said he was in his yard one night raking leaves, and that he instantly got a horrible migraine. He began to see lights, I'm assuming above him. He claimed that it happened around 9 p.m. and was over by 9:05. He said he woke up missing his eye, and this is when he called 911. The man's story never changed. He maintains that to this day, or at least until back when it happened. After this occurrence, despite missing an eye, he could see two things at once. With his good eye, he could see everything that exists in front of him. With the other, he could simultaneously see inside of some alien ship, and that men in scuba gear would strap abducted people to a table and surgically dismember them. It tormented him. He had frequent night terrors and had shown signs that he'd experienced significant trauma from some recollections over the years by sane people who claimed to be abducted by aliens. This is a true story and literally happened only a week or so ago. My mother visits her family in Morocco, located in North Africa, every 3 years due to the expenses and her mother's illness. This year I begged her to let me go with her, thinking it would be relaxing and fun experience. God, was I wrong. We landed on March 9th, and I was supposed to leave on the 21st due to spring break ending. But with the current pandemic and all the drama, we ended up being stuck here for roughly 4 months. We are still here, and while we were here, we are stuck in my aunt's apartment, and we only ever go out to get groceries, which is rare in itself. While stuck here, my mental health reached its lowest point. I wouldn't stop thinking and hearing things, sometimes even seeing odd stuff too. Some days I'd hear sirens wailing and people screaming, but since my Arabic and French is limited, half the time I couldn't understand what people were saying, as it was always slurred out. With siren head trending and being fairly new, I was always scared, as I'd always watch videos and theories on YouTube and read about it. So to hear it out loud, sirens on the daily, was terrifying. And they don't even have sirens here. There were no drills, no warnings, but eventually I got used to it. I've seen so many eerie things while stuck here, ranging from a horse entirely still outside despite it being the wee hours of days to people with deformed features, but the worst of it was what I'd imagined. Like I mentioned previously, only a week or so ago, I was up late in the night, staring at the ceiling. This was like a ritual for me, since insomnia just loves to slap me across the face, and the stress about the situation I'm in would keep me up. I haven't had proper sleep since I got here, but this is where things became weird. I look to my right, where the closet is. I sleep on a mattress on the floor that I have to share with my mother, as again I'm stuck in my aunt's apartment in this cramped room. As I lay, my eyes direct to the opening of the closet. where I would see the shadow of a dark hand. No, not dark as in someone's skin tone and color, but it looked to be concealed with fabric like a glove. I was confused, of course, but I thought I was hallucinating due to the lack of sleep, so I brushed it off. Even so, I continued to stare at what I thought was a hand till a face popped out from the crack of the door. It was ghostly pale, pure white even. With huge and wide eyes, I couldn't see black beads that stared right at me, inspecting me. A wide smile painted red stretching its face. It was gruesome and so ugly, but I couldn't look away. My mind was cleared, and immediately I could think of anything as I continued to stare at it. And the more I stared, the more I saw. Black hair that looked drenched and was so thin, framed its horrifying face. What I'd imagined to be a black coat covering the entirety of its skinned body. Any sign of eyelids or lashes. They were so wide and circular, it was horrifying. And his shakes of no would become more and more violent. When I looked away and back up at the ceiling, I felt a force on my arm, like someone was holding it. It was strangely warmer than the rest of. I live in a small house in Derby. When I first moved here, I felt something was off. It was just creepy at night. But the basement was the worst. Well, about 2 or 3 months ago at night, whenever I could get out of bed, I would feel a presence behind me at first. I would brush it off, but then I started watching TV in the basement at night. One night, while I was just watching TV, I suddenly felt uneasy and scared. And then I started seeing things in my head. But the worst one was of this tall, thin thing that would just stand in the corner slumped over. But his one defining feature was a small top hat that he wore, so I named him Mr. Top Hat. But ever since I first saw him, every time I go down to my basement, I feel compelled to look at the corner he stood in, and each time I do, I feel like I'm going to. Hey guys, I just wanted to say, if you stayed this long, the third story was actually submitted by one of you guys. If you have a story you guys want to tell your own, you guys can feel free to send it to my email, hhstories@gmail.com. I have it down in the description. Hopefully I get to hear from you guys. And don't forget to give me feedback on what I can do to improve